Well, I think that our group, Earwax, has the advantage of working across different mediums. We're working in film, we're working in advertising, national advertising, we're working in radio and new media, CD-ROMs. When you pull all those elements together, you end up with a vocabulary that's a little wider. And the guy was going, whoa, The sound itself is spectacular.
I am Dracula.
I guess it was my second year in conservatory. Went to a music school for undergraduate study. What came out of it for me was an opportunity to explore sound in a kind of a frozen way, where you could stretch the range of frequency and stretch the range of amplitude to the point where you could begin to really understand it and see what it meant. Basically, it breaks down into two components, and I guess if you study Stockhausen, he'll say it's only one. But for purposes of conversation, I think maybe a way to organize thought, it's usually broken down into two areas, one of frequency or pitch, the highs and the lows of tonality, and amplitude, which I guess we usually refer to as loudness.
There, 1 minute. You wanna listen?
The big thing in the late 60s, early 70s with John Cage and those experimenters were to do chance operation, which to me the real reason for doing chance is to make yourself more aware of the possibilities, right? Not necessarily to see what comes out of chance, because chance is chance, and some areas are going to be working really well because you didn't think of them before, and some areas are just going to be dumb, right? What it really says is, if you put yourself in a position that's not so focused or decided in a certain area, you leave yourself open for the possibilities. The sounds themselves will reveal what they need to be, or reveal what the drama needs to be. A project that came to me from, actually came out of Lucasfilm. There's a sound designer there who I've worked with, Randy Tom. He's gotten awards from The Right Stuff, and he's worked for years and years with David Lynch. And actually last year did Forrest Gump. He wanted a sound design built in and around this classic music CD. He had a collection of Corelli and Albinoni and Shostakovich and Barber and some others. Warner Brothers doesn't have a classic music label, so they're trying something a little bit experimental here. And the idea was to create these soundscapes, designed soundscapes between the pieces. And I think what this piece, to me, what it reveals is how sound effects can set you up emotionally for the music. They make you think a certain thing going into the piece.
I was disappointed a couple months ago I went to listen to the symphony, and that you get so fooled with the CDs now because they've broadened the dynamic range with recording process, where they can, if they've got mics on everybody in the band and then mics on the whole band, they can take the dynamic range or the amplification range from just this little tiny quiet little image to this huge, amazing. So I was in the symphony hall expecting to hear this, and the range was like that. And there's a different quality to it because there's people there and you see, there's a human element to it, but sonically it was so disappointing. I thought, wow, I'm expecting to be overwhelmed by this orchestra. What's really, really loud if there's not a real quiet? And the mistake that I see so often in mixes and even theatrical mixes is that they'll run everything loud. Eventually the guy's going to turn the volume down, and then there's no such thing as loud. If you set up an expectation where there's some quiet, intimate things happening at the beginning, and that's the pedestal in which things are set, the listener adjusts the volume of their set, and then at some point in it you can come in with something that's on the other end of the spectrum. But if you start big, unless you're in control of the volume, which it's rare, unless you've stuck them in a theater. If you start big, they're going to turn it down. And then what does quiet mean when you can't hear it?
I'm curious as to how far you can stretch certain areas, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you never really know until you push the boundaries. So.